I fell in love with someone online. When we met, it was my deceased wife's sister. The cursor blinked at me from the empty message box, mocking my inability to find the right words. It had been 3 years since I tried to talk to someone new, 3 years since the accident, 3 years since I'd felt anything resembling hope. But here I was, staring at a profile picture of a woman with kind eyes and a genuine smile, trying to remember how to be human again. Her username was Bookworm in Boston, and her profile said she was 34, loved hiking, classical music, and old movies. She'd written something in her bio that made me pause, looking for someone who understands that broken pieces can still make something beautiful. I understood that better than anyone. My name is Daniel Cooper, and I'm 37 years old. I live alone in a house that's too big for one person, in a neighborhood where everyone knows my story and treats me with that careful kindness reserved for the tragically bereaved. I'm a high school history teacher. I run every morning at 5 a.m., and I haven't been on a date since my wife died. Catherine. Even thinking her name hurt, like pressing on a bruise that never quite healed. Catherine Elizabeth Montgomery Cooper, dead at 32, killed by a drunk driver on a Tuesday afternoon while coming home from the grocery store. She texted me 15 minutes before the accident, "Got your favorite ice cream. Love you." Those were her last words to me. Love you. Not even I love you, just love you, casual and comfortable. The way you talk to someone you plan to spend forever with. Except forever ended on a Tuesday at 3:47 p.m. I took a deep breath and started typing. "Hi, I'm Daniel. I like your quote about broken pieces. I think I'm still trying to figure out what shape mine make." I hit send before I could overthink it, then immediately regretted everything. Too heavy, too intense, too honest for a first message to a stranger on a dating app I'd only downloaded because my sister insisted it was time to start living again. I was about to delete my account when my phone buzzed. "Hi Daniel, I'm Sarah, and I think that's the most honest first message I've ever received. Most men just say, 'Hey beautiful,' or ask about my pictures. Thank you for being real." Something in my chest loosened slightly. I typed back, "I'm not good at pretending anymore. Life kind of beat it out of me. I understand that more than you know." And somehow, just like that, we started talking. Not just that night, but the next day, and the day after that. Small messages at first, what we did for work, our favorite books, whether we preferred coffee or tea. But slowly, carefully, the messages got longer, deeper, more honest. Sarah told me she worked as a trauma counselor at a hospital. She said she'd chosen that career because she understood what it felt like to have your world shattered in an instant. She didn't elaborate, and I didn't push. We both had ghosts, that was enough. I told her about Catherine. Not everything, not at first, but enough. I told her about the empty house, the wedding photos I couldn't bring myself to take down, the way I still set 2 coffee cups out every morning before remembering. I told her things I hadn't told anyone, not even my therapist. And she listened. Through text messages and voice notes, and eventually phone calls that lasted until 2 in the morning. She listened. "You don't have to be okay yet," she told me one night, 3 weeks after we'd started talking. Her voice was soft, almost musical. Grief doesn't have a timeline, Daniel. Anyone who tells you it does is lying. "How do you know so much about grief?" I asked. There was a long pause. I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line, could almost feel her deciding how much to reveal. "I lost someone too," she said finally. "Someone I loved very much. It's been 3 years, and some days it still feels like yesterday. 3 years. The same as me. What was their name?" I asked gently. Another pause. "Katie." Her name was Katie. Something about the way she said it made me think there was more to the story. But I didn't press. We all had our secrets, our private pains we weren't ready to share. 2 months passed like this. 2 months of messages and calls and voice notes we'd send each other throughout the day. She'd record herself reading passages from books she thought I'd like. I'd send her pictures of sunrises from my morning runs. The sky painted in colors that reminded me there was still beauty in the world. We never video called. It was an unspoken agreement between us, something we both seemed to need. This was safer, somehow. Less real. Less terrifying. But it felt real. God, it felt real. I found myself smiling at my phone like a teenager. I'd catch myself in the middle of teaching a class, thinking about something funny she'd said that morning. My sister noticed the change immediately. "You're different," Emily said one Sunday when she came over for dinner. "Lighter somehow. What's going on?" I told her about Sarah, about the messages and the phone calls and the way talking to her felt like coming home after a long journey. Emily's face lit up. "Daniel, that's wonderful. Have you met her yet? What does she look like?" "We haven't met in person yet," I admitted. "And I haven't seen her. Just that one profile picture." Emily's enthusiasm dimmed slightly. "Daniel, you have been talking to her for 2 months. Don't you think it's time to meet? To make sure she's real?" "She's real," I said defensively. "I talk to her every day. I know her voice. I know her laugh. I know how she takes her coffee and what books make her cry and—" "You know what she's told you?" Emily interrupted gently. "Look, I'm not trying to be negative. I'm happy you're connecting with someone. But please, just be careful. Meet her in public. Make sure she's who she says she is." I knew Emily was being protective because she loved me, because she'd watched me fall apart after Catherine died and was terrified of seeing me hurt again. But I also knew Sarah. I knew her in a way that went beyond profile pictures and video calls. Or at least, I thought I did. That night, I brought it up with Sarah during our call. "My sister thinks we should meet," I said, trying to sound casual. "She's worried I'm being catfished or something." Sarah laughed, but it sounded forced. "Is she? Worried, I mean, a little. Are you? Being a catfish, I mean—" "No," Sarah said quietly. "I'm very real, Daniel. Maybe too real. That's what scares me." "What do you mean?" "Meeting in person it changes things. What we have now, it's safe. It's honest. Once we meet, it becomes something else. Something with expectations and possibilities and risk," I finished. "I know. I'm scared too, Sarah. I'm terrified actually. But I want to meet you. I want to see the person behind all these messages. I want to know if your eyes crinkle when you laugh the way I imagine they do." Silence on the other end. For a moment, I thought she'd hung up. "Okay," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "Okay, let's meet. But Daniel, I need to tell you something first. About Katie. About why I'm in Boston. About—" "You can tell me anything," I interrupted. "Whatever it is, it won't change how I feel about you." Another long pause. "Let's meet first. There are some things that need to be said in person." We made plans for the following Saturday. There was a cafe in downtown Boston, a quiet place she suggested, with good coffee and corner booths where we could talk. Neutral ground. Public, but private. I spent the week oscillating between excitement and terror. I bought new clothes. I got a haircut. I practiced what I'd say when I first saw her. Every version sounded stupid. Friday night, the night before our meeting, Emily called. "Are you ready for tomorrow?" she asked. "I don't know. Is anyone ever ready for something like this?" "Probably not," Emily admitted. "But Daniel, I need to ask you something. Have you thought about what this means? Actually dating someone? Being with someone who isn't Catherine?" The question hit me harder than I expected. I think about it every day, Em. The guilt it's overwhelming sometimes. Like I'm betraying her somehow. "You're not betraying anyone," Emily said firmly. "Catherine would want you to be happy. She loved you. She'd want you to live." I know. Logically, I know that. But knowing and feeling are different things. "Just promise me you'll give this a real chance. Give Sarah a real chance. Don't sabotage it before it even begins, because you feel guilty for being happy." I promised, even though I wasn't sure I could keep it. That night, I did something I hadn't done in months. I went into the spare bedroom, the one I'd been using as a storage room, and pulled out the boxes of Catherine's things. Photos, letters, clothes that still smelled faintly of her perfume. I sat on the floor surrounded by pieces of a life that no longer existed and let myself really feel it. The loss, the love, the terrible, beautiful fact that I'd had her at all. even if it wasn't for long enough. And then I did something I hadn't been able to do in 3 years. I said goodbye. Not forever. Never forever. But goodbye to the version of myself that was frozen in grief, unable to move forward. Goodbye to the man who set out 2 coffee cups every morning. Goodbye to the life we'd planned that would never happen. I'm going to try, I whispered to her picture, a candid shot from our honeymoon where she was laughing at something I'd said. I'm going to try to be happy again. I hope that's okay. The next morning, I woke up early. Too early. It was barely dawn, but I couldn't sleep. I went for my usual run, but nothing felt usual. Everything felt electric, alive, terrifying. I showered, changed clothes 3 times, changed them again. I left the house at noon, even though we weren't meeting until 2. I drove around Boston aimlessly, listening to music that reminded me of Catherine, then quickly changing it to something else, because today wasn't about the past. It was about the possibility of a future. I arrived at the cafe 30 minutes early, ordered coffee, spilled it because my hands were shaking, ordered another one, sat in the corner booth Sarah had suggested and watched the door. 1:55. 5 minutes early. 2 o'clock. Right on time. 2:05. Running late. That's okay. Traffic in Boston is terrible. 2:10. Maybe she changed her mind. 2:15. She's definitely not coming. I was pulling out my phone to text her when the door opened, and my entire world stopped. She was beautiful. That was my first thought. Tall, with dark hair pulled back in a loose braid. She wore jeans and a green sweater that brought out her eyes. She was scanning the cafe, looking for me, and when our eyes met, her face went pale. She knew me. I could see it in her face. Recognition, but not the recognition of someone meeting a person from a dating app. This was something deeper, something that made her freeze in the doorway, one hand clutching her purse like a lifeline. I stood up slowly, my brain trying to process what I was seeing, trying to understand why this stranger looked at me like she'd seen a ghost. And then it hit me, the shape of her face, the curve of her smile, now frozen in shock, the way she stood, weight on one hip, the exact same way. Oh my God, I breathed. She took a step backward toward the door. Daniel, you're Catherine's sister. The words fell into the space between us like stones into water, sending ripples through everything I thought I knew. Catherine's sister. Lauren. No, not Lauren. Sarah. She'd said her name was Sarah. But I knew this face. I'd seen it in photographs at the funeral, standing apart from the rest of Catherine's family, grief-stricken and silent. We'd never really talked, not beyond brief condolences. She'd lived in California then, had flown in for the funeral, and left immediately after. I'd barely registered her presence through my own fog of grief. But here she was, in Boston, calling herself Sarah, talking to me for 2 months without telling me who she was. I can explain, she said, and her voice was the same voice I'd been falling asleep to for 8 weeks. The same voice that had read me poetry and told me about her day and laughed at my terrible jokes. You lied to me. My voice didn't sound like my own. It was cold, distant, belonging to someone else. I didn't lie. Sarah is my middle name. I've been going by it since. She stopped, pressed her lips together. Since the funeral. I couldn't be Lauren anymore. She was Catherine's sister. She was the girl who grew up competing with her older sister. She was someone I didn't want to be anymore. So you became Sarah, I said flatly. And you just happened to match with me on a dating app? Is that what you're telling me? That this is all just a coincidence? She flinched. No, it wasn't a coincidence. I was looking for you. The cafe had gone quiet. Or maybe it hadn't. Maybe there was still the hiss of the espresso machine and the murmur of conversation. But all I could hear was the blood rushing in my ears. You were looking for me, I repeated. Why? Because she took a step closer, then stopped when I took a step back. Pain flashed across her face. Because I needed to know you were okay. Because I've been carrying this guilt for 3 years, and I needed to know that you survived it. Guilt. The word came out sharp. What guilt? You didn't drive the car that killed her. You weren't even there. No, she said, and there were tears in her eyes now. I wasn't there. That's the problem. I should have been. What are you talking about? She looked around the cafe, suddenly aware of the eyes on us. Can we sit? Please? Let me explain everything. And then, if you want me to leave, if you never want to see me again, I'll go. But please, let me tell you the truth. Every instinct told me to leave, to get out of this cafe and away from this woman who had lied to me, who had pretended to be someone else, who had somehow wormed her way into my life under false pretenses. But there was something in her eyes, something desperate and broken and achingly familiar. So I sat. She sat across from me in the booth I'd been waiting in, and for a moment we just looked at each other. I could see Catherine in her face, the same high cheekbones, the same slight cleft in her chin. But where Catherine had been bright and energetic, always in motion, Sarah seemed quieter, sadder, like she carried weight that threatened to crush her. Start talking, I said. She took a shaky breath. My real name is Lauren Sarah Montgomery. Sarah was our grandmother's name. Catherine and I grew up in Connecticut, but we weren't close. Not really. I was the younger sister, always in her shadow. She was smarter, prettier, more successful. Everyone loved Catherine. I loved Catherine, I said, and the words came out harder than I intended. I know, Sarah said quietly. I know you did. I could see it at the funeral. The way you looked like you died too. The way you couldn't stop touching her casket, like you could bring her back if you just held on tight enough. The memory of that day hit me like a physical blow. What does this have to do with anything? The day she died, Sarah continued, her voice barely above a whisper, we were supposed to meet. Catherine called me that morning. She said she had something important to tell me, that she needed to see me. We made plans to meet at a coffee shop at 4 o'clock. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. I don't understand. She was coming from the grocery store, Daniel. Your grocery store? Yes, but she was on her way to meet me. If we hadn't made those plans, she would have gone straight home. She would have taken a different route. She wouldn't have been on that intersection at that exact moment. That's not, I started, but she cut me off. I know what you're going to say, that it's not my fault, that I can't blame myself for something a drunk driver did. I've been to therapy. I've heard all the logical arguments, but logic doesn't change how it feels. So you've been carrying this guilt for 3 years, I said slowly, trying to piece it together. And you decided to find me? To talk to me? Why not just tell me who you were from the beginning? Because I tried. Her voice broke. I tried calling you 6 months after the funeral. I tried writing you letters. But every time I got close, I froze. What was I supposed to say? Hi, remember me? I'm the reason your wife died. How do you lead with that? She died because someone got behind the wheel drunk, I said firmly. Not because of you. I know that here, Sarah pointed to her head. But not here. She pressed her hand to her chest. And then a year ago, I moved to Boston. I told myself it was for a job opportunity, but really I needed to be closer to where it happened, to understand it somehow. And I started seeing you. My blood ran cold. What do you mean, seeing me? Not like stalking, she said quickly. I'd see you running sometimes. In the mornings. I run the same route just earlier. And I'd see you at the grocery store sometimes, the same one Catherine was leaving when I never approached you. I just needed to know you were still alive, that you were getting up every day and putting one foot in front of the other. This is insane, I muttered, running my hands through my hair. This is absolutely insane. I know. Believe me, I know how this sounds. But then 3 months ago, I saw you at a bookstore. You were in the poetry section, and you looked so lost, so alone. And you picked up a book of Mary Oliver poems, Catherine's favorite poet. And I watched you read the first page and then put it back like it hurt too much. I remembered that day. I remembered that exact moment. I wanted to talk to you then, Sarah continued. I wanted to tell you I understood, that I felt that same pain every time I saw something that reminded me of her. But I couldn't. I was too afraid. So I went home and I did something stupid. I created a dating profile, and I set the filters so specifically that I knew I'd find you. You engineered this, I said, the reality of it finally sinking in. You manipulated everything so we'd match. Yes, she admitted, and at least she had the decency to look ashamed. Yes, I did. And I told myself I just wanted to talk to you once. Just wanted to make sure you were okay. But then we started talking, and you were so honest, and so broken, and so beautiful in your grief. And I couldn't stop. So Katie, I said, the person you told me you lost, that was Catherine. She nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks now. Katie was what I called her when we were kids, before everything got complicated between us, before the competition and the resentment and all the stupid sister drama. When we were little, she was just Katie, and I loved her more than anything. I sat back, trying to process everything. 2 months of conversations. 2 months of falling for someone who was lying to me the entire time. 2 months of sharing my deepest pain with someone who was connected to that pain in ways I never could have imagined. Say something, Sarah whispered. Please. I don't know what to say. I don't even know what to feel right now. Are you angry? Yes. No. I don't know. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw my own grief reflected back at me. Why didn't you just tell me? After we started talking. After it became clear we were connecting. Why keep lying? Because I was terrified, she said simply. I was terrified you'd hate me, that you'd blame me the way I blame myself. And selfishly, I didn't want to lose what we had. Those conversations with you, Daniel, they were the first time in 3 years that I felt like I could breathe. The first time I felt like someone understood what I was going through. Because I was going through the same thing, I said. We were grieving the same person. Yes, but also no. She leaned forward, her eyes intense. I wasn't just grieving Catherine. I was grieving the sister I never really got to know. The sister I wasted years resenting over stupid things. And when I talked to you, I got to know her through your eyes, through your memories. I got to understand why everyone loved her so much, why she was worth loving. She was always worth loving, I said quietly. I know that now, but I didn't then. Not really. Sarah wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Daniel, I know I have no right to ask this. I know I've already taken so much from you just by existing. But can I tell you about the day she died? About what she wanted to tell me? Every part of me wanted to say no. Wanted to get up and leave and never see this woman again. But there was a part of me, small but insistent, that needed to know. Okay, I said. Sarah took a deep breath, steadying herself. She called me at 9 in the morning. I was at work, about to go into a session with a patient. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. She sounded excited, happy. She said, Lauren, I need to see you today. I have the most amazing news, and I want to tell you in person. I asked what it was, but she wouldn't say. She just kept saying it needed to be in person. My heart started beating faster. What was it? What was the news? I don't know, Sarah said, and the agony in her voice was palpable. She died before she could tell me. I've spent 3 years trying to figure it out. I went through every possibility. A promotion at work? A vacation you planned? Something about the house? I drove myself crazy trying to guess. It could have been anything, I said, but my mind was already racing through possibilities. Catherine was always excited about things. She got excited about new recipes she wanted to try. I know, but this felt different. There was something in her voice. Sarah paused. Did she seem different that day? Before she left for the store. I thought back to that Tuesday morning. Catherine making breakfast, singing along to the radio. Catherine kissing me goodbye before I left for work, promising to make my favorite dinner that night. No, I said. She seemed normal, happy, but no more than usual. Sarah nodded, but she looked disappointed. I've asked her friends, her co-workers. No one knew what she wanted to tell me. It's like she took this secret with her. Maybe it wasn't a secret, I suggested. Maybe it was just something small that felt big to her in the moment. Maybe, Sarah agreed, but she didn't sound convinced. We sat in silence for a moment, both lost in our own thoughts, our own memories of Catherine. I should be angrier, I said finally. I should be furious with you for lying, for manipulating me. But honestly, I'm just tired. I'm so tired of being angry and sad and broken. I'm sorry, Sarah said. I'm so sorry. For lying. For everything. If I could go back and do it differently. Would you? I interrupted. Would you really? Because those conversations we had, they were real. The connection was real, even if the circumstances weren't. She looked at me, surprised. Yes, they were real. For me too. So what now? I asked. Where do we go from here? I don't know, Sarah admitted. I didn't think past this moment. I didn't think you'd even stay to listen. I almost didn't. I looked down at my cold coffee, at my hands wrapped around the cup like an anchor. My sister told me to be careful, to make sure you were who you said you were. Turns out you weren't. No, I wasn't. I'm worse. I'm the walking reminder of everything you lost. Maybe, I said, or maybe you're the only person in the world who understands exactly what I'm going through. Hope flickered across her face. Does that mean? I don't know what it means, I said honestly. I need time. I need to process all of this. But Sarah, or Lauren, or whatever you want to call you. Sarah, she said quickly. Please call me Sarah. Lauren died with Catherine. I can't be her anymore. Okay, Sarah. I don't hate you. I should probably, but I don't. And I don't blame you for what happened. The drunk driver killed Catherine. Not you. Not your coffee plans. Just some asshole who made a terrible choice. She nodded, tears streaming freely now. Thank you. You don't know how much I needed to hear that. But I do need time, I continued. Time to figure out what all of this means. Time to separate the woman I've been talking to for 2 months from Catherine's sister. Time to understand if what we had was real or just two broken people clinging to each other. That's fair, Sarah said, standing up. That's more than fair. I'll go. But Daniel, can I ask you one thing first? What? Can I give you something? Something of Catherine's that I think you should have. I hesitated, then nodded. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small notebook. It was worn, the edges soft with use. She slid it across the table to me. What is this? I asked. Catherine's journal. From the last year of her life. She sent it to me a week before she died. Said she wanted me to have it, to understand her better. I've read it 100 times, but I think you should read it too. Especially the last entry. My hands trembled as I picked up the notebook. Catherine's handwriting was on the cover, small and neat. For Lauren, with love. Why are you giving this to me? Because it has answers. Not about what she wanted to tell me that day. She doesn't mention it. But about other things. Important things. Things that might help you understand why I did what I did. She stood up, shouldering her purse. Read it. And then, if you want to talk, you have my number. The real one this time. She walked to the door, then paused and looked back at me. For what it's worth, Daniel, falling for you wasn't part of the plan. That part was completely real. And then she was gone, leaving me alone in a crowded cafe with my cold coffee and my dead wife's journal. I sat there for a long time, just staring at the notebook. Part of me wanted to open it immediately, to devour Catherine's words like a man dying of thirst. But another part of me was terrified of what I might find. Finally, I opened to the first page. Dear Lauren, it began. I'm writing this because I'm not good at saying important things out loud. I'm not good at being vulnerable, at admitting when I'm wrong. But I need you to know that I'm sorry. For everything. For being a terrible sister. For making you feel like you were less than me. For all the years we wasted being rivals instead of friends. I turned the page, my heart racing. The journal was full of entries addressed to Lauren. Catherine writing about their childhood, about fights they'd had, about resentments she'd carried, but also about love, about missing her sister, about wanting to fix their relationship before it was too late. I skipped ahead, unable to help myself, looking for the last entry. It was dated the day before she died. Dear Lauren, I'm calling you tomorrow. I'm done waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect words. I'm just going to call and tell you everything. Tell you how much I love you, how proud I am of you, how sorry I am for all the wasted years. But most importantly, I'm going to tell you my news. The news I've been sitting on for a week because I wanted you to be the first to know. I'm pregnant. Daniel doesn't know yet. I want to tell you first. I want my baby to grow up knowing their aunt. I want them to have the relationship with you that I should have had. I want to fix this, Lauren. I want us to be sisters again. Real sisters. The kind who talk every day and share everything and love each other without all the complicated mess. I'm scared to call you. Scared you won't care. Scared too much has happened between us. But I'm going to do it anyway. Tomorrow morning. And I'm going to tell you everything. I love you, little sister. I always have, even when I was too stubborn to show it. Katie. The notebook fell from my hands. Pregnant. Catherine had been pregnant. And I never knew. The cafe spun around me. I gripped the edge of the table, trying to anchor myself to something solid, something real. But nothing felt real anymore. The world I thought I knew, the grief I thought I understood, had just shifted into something entirely different. Catherine had been carrying our child, and she died before she could tell me. I picked up the notebook with shaking hands and read the entry again, looking for some detail I'd missed, some indication that I'd misunderstood. But the words were clear, written in Catherine's careful handwriting. I'm pregnant. How far along had she been? A week? A month? Long enough to know, but not long enough to tell me. Why had she waited? Why tell her sister first? But I knew the answer even as I asked the question. Catherine would have wanted to surprise me. She would have planned something special, something meaningful. And she'd wanted to repair her relationship with Lauren first, to make sure her child would grow up with family, with love, with an aunt who was present. I stood up so fast my chair fell backward. I didn't bother to pick it up. I grabbed the notebook and my keys and ran out of the cafe, ignoring the stares of other customers. I had to find Sarah, Lauren, whatever her name was. I had to what? Yell at her? Thank her? I didn't know. I just knew I couldn't be alone with this information. I pulled out my phone and called her number. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Daniel. Her voice was cautious, surprised. Where are you? I demanded. I'm walking. About 2 blocks from the cafe. Daniel, what's wrong? Stay there. Don't move. I'm coming to you. I found her standing on a corner near Boston Common, her phone still pressed to her ear. When she saw me running toward her, she ended the call and took a step back, her eyes wide. You read it, she said. It wasn't a question. She was pregnant. The words came out strangled, barely coherent. Catherine was pregnant, and you knew. You've known this whole time, and you didn't tell me. I didn't know if you knew, Sarah said quickly. I didn't know if she told you before it happened. I couldn't just bring it up. How do you start that conversation? The same way you start any conversation. I shouted. People were staring now, but I didn't care. You say, hey Daniel, by the way, your wife was carrying your child when she died. That's how you start it. I'm sorry, Sarah said, and she was crying now. I'm so sorry. I wanted to tell you so many times. Every time we talked about Catherine, every time you mentioned wanting kids someday, I wanted to tell you, but it felt like it would destroy you. And finding out this way is better. I held up the notebook, reading it in her own words, alone in a cafe, 3 years after the fact. No, you're right. I should have told you. I should have told you the first time we talked. But Daniel, I was trying to protect you. I don't need protection. I was yelling now, not caring who heard. I needed the truth. I needed to know that I didn't just lose my wife that day. I lost my child too. I lost the future we were supposed to have. I lost everything. The words hung in the air between us, and suddenly all the fight went out of me. I sank down onto a nearby bench, the notebook clutched in my hands. Sarah sat beside me, keeping a careful distance. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. We sat in silence for a long moment. Around us, Boston moved on with its day. Joggers ran past. Parents pushed strollers. A street musician played guitar for spare change. Life continuing, indifferent to the fact that mine had just shattered all over again. Did she know? I asked finally. About the baby, I mean. Did she know before the accident that she was carrying? She knew for about a week, Sarah said softly. According to the journal, she'd taken the test and then gone to a doctor to confirm. She was planning how to tell you. She had this whole elaborate thing planned involving baby shoes and... She stopped, seeing my face. Baby shoes, I repeated numbly. Of course she did. The medical examiner's report mentioned it, Sarah continued, her voice barely above a whisper. The pregnancy, I mean. It's how I first found out, actually. Mom was the one who had to identify the body, and they told her. She didn't tell anyone else, wanted to protect you. But she told me years later, after I moved to Boston. Thought I should know. Your mother knew too? I felt something crack inside me. How many people knew about this? Just Mom and me. And now you. Daniel, I know you're angry, and you have every right to be. But please understand, we weren't trying to hurt you. We were trying to spare you additional pain. That wasn't your choice to make, I said. She was my wife. That was my child. I had a right to know. You're absolutely right, Sarah agreed. And I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm just asking you to understand why I did it. I looked at the notebook in my hands, at Catherine's handwriting on the cover. 3 years I'd been grieving, and I'd only been grieving half the loss. There was a child I'd never met, never held, never got to love. A child that existed for mere weeks before being taken away. Was it a boy or a girl? I asked. They couldn't tell. It was too early. Maybe 8 weeks along. 8 weeks. 2 months. The same amount of time I'd been talking to Sarah. The irony wasn't lost on me. I need to know everything, I said. Everything in that journal. Everything you know about that day. No more secrets, no more protection. Just the truth. Sarah nodded. Okay, but not here. Let's go somewhere private. This isn't a conversation for a park bench. She took me to her apartment, a small one-bedroom in Cambridge with walls lined with bookshelves and a window that looked out over the Charles River. It was neat, almost austere, like someone who hadn't quite committed to the idea of home. Coffee, she offered. Something stronger, if you have it. She poured us both whiskey, neat, and we sat on opposite ends of her couch with a journal between us. Start from the beginning, I said. So she did. She told me about growing up with Catherine, about how their mother had always compared them, pitting them against each other in ways both subtle and obvious. Catherine, the golden child. Lauren, the disappointing afterthought. How that dynamic had poisoned their relationship for years. I resented her so much, Sarah said, staring into her glass. She got everything. The attention, the praise, the love. And I got the leftovers. Why can't you be more like your sister? Became the soundtrack of my childhood. Catherine never mentioned that, I said. She wouldn't have. She felt guilty about it, but she also didn't know how to fix it. That's what the journal is about. Her trying to understand how their relationship got so broken and how to repair it. She walked me through the entries. Catherine writing about fights they'd had as teenagers. About Lauren missing Catherine's college graduation because she couldn't bear to watch her sister succeed again. About Catherine's wedding, our wedding, where Lauren had been a bridesmaid but had barely spoken to anyone. I was so jealous, Sarah admitted. You were perfect together. Anyone could see it. And I was happy for her, genuinely happy, but I was also bitter. Why did she get the fairy tale? Why did everything work out for her? It didn't work out, I said quietly. She died at 32. I know. And when it happened, when I got the call from Mom, my first thought wasn't sadness. It was guilt. Because there was this tiny, terrible part of me that felt relieved. Relieved that for once, something bad had happened to her instead of me. What kind of person thinks that about their own sister? A human one, I said. Grief and guilt and relief can all exist at the same time. Trust me, I know. She looked at me, and I saw understanding pass between us. We were both carrying impossible weights, both trying to figure out how to live with choices we couldn't undo. Tell me about the pregnancy, I said. Everything she wrote about it. Sarah flipped to a section about 3/4 through the journal. She found out on a Monday. She took 3 different tests because she couldn't believe it. You'd been trying, she wrote, but not seriously. Just seeing what happened. I remembered that. We talked about having kids, but decided not to stress about timing. Whatever happens, happens, Catherine had said. If it's meant to be, it'll be. She was terrified, Sarah continued. Terrified and excited and completely overwhelmed. She wrote about all these fears she had, about being a good mother, about changing too much, about whether you'd be happy or scared. I would have been terrified, I admitted. But happy. God, I would have been so happy. She knew that. But she wanted to do it right. She wanted to tell you in a perfect way, of a memorable way. She bought baby shoes, little yellow ones, gender neutral, and was planning to hide them in your lunch bag with a note. I could picture it so clearly it hurt. Coming home, finding the shoes, understanding what they meant. The joy, the fear, the absolute certainty that our lives were about to change forever. But she wanted to tell me first, Sarah said. She wanted to repair our relationship before the baby came. She didn't want her child growing up without knowing their aunt, without having extended family who actually cared about each other. So she called you that morning, I said, understanding now, and made plans to meet. Yes, we were supposed to meet at 4 o'clock at a coffee shop in Cambridge. She was coming from your house in Brookline. The accident happened at 3:47. 13 minutes. She'd been 13 minutes away from telling her sister she was going to be an aunt. 13 minutes from starting to heal a relationship that had been broken for years. The driver, I said suddenly. The drunk driver. What happened to him? Sarah's face hardened. He got 8 years. Served 5 with good behavior. He's out now. 5 years, I repeated. He took everything from me and got 5 years. I know. I'm sorry. The justice system is... Don't, I interrupted. Don't apologize for something that isn't your fault. You've been apologizing for 3 years for something you didn't do. The driver killed Catherine. Not you. Not your coffee plans. Him. She nodded, but I could see she didn't believe it. Not really. Guilt like that doesn't respond to logic. There's more in the journal, Sarah said hesitantly. About me. About us. Things Catherine wrote that I think you should know. She handed me the notebook, opened to a page near the end. Dear Lauren, I read aloud. I've been thinking a lot about Daniel lately. About how lucky I am to have found someone who sees me completely and loves me anyway. He's not perfect. He leaves dishes in the sink, and he's terrible at remembering birthdays. But he's perfect for me. And I want that for you too. I want you to find someone who makes you feel the way Daniel makes me feel. Safe. Seen. Loved without conditions. Promise me you won't give up on love just because you haven't found it yet. Promise me you'll keep your heart open, even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. I stopped reading, my throat tight. Keep going, Sarah said softly. I think about what kind of mother I'll be, I continued. And I think about what kind of aunt you'll be. I hope you'll teach my baby all the things I'm not good at. Patience, thoughtfulness, how to see the beauty in quiet moments. You were always better at that than me. I was always rushing forward, and you were always stopping to notice things. That's a gift, Lauren. Don't let anyone make you think it's not. I closed the notebook, unable to continue. She loved you, I said to Sarah. She really loved you. I know. And I loved her. But I never told her that. I never said the words. And now she's gone and I can't. She broke off, covering her face with her hands. I moved closer to her on the couch, not quite touching, but near enough to offer comfort. She knew. I promise you she knew. How can you promise that? Because I know what it feels like to be loved by Catherine. And I know she didn't need words to understand love. She felt it. In actions, in presence, in the people who showed up. You showed up, Sarah. You came to Boston. You've been trying to make amends with her memory for 3 years. She would see that. She would understand. Sarah looked at me, her eyes red and swollen. How are you not furious with me? How are you sitting here comforting me after everything I did? I am furious, I admitted. I'm angry and hurt and confused. But I'm also exhausted. I'm tired of carrying around all this rage and grief. And besides, you're the only person in the world who understands what I'm feeling right now. You're the only one who loved her the way I did. I didn't love her the way you did, Sarah protested. No, but you loved her completely. You loved her enough to spend 3 years punishing yourself for something that wasn't your fault. You loved her enough to track down her widowed husband and try to make sure he was okay. You loved her enough to risk everything, including your own heart, to ease your guilt. Is that what I did? Sarah asked quietly. Risk my heart. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw not Catherine's sister, but Sarah. A woman who'd been hiding behind a screen name and a false identity, but whose pain and longing and hope had been completely real. I think we both did, I said. We sat in silence for a while, the weight of everything unsaid pressing down on us. I need to ask you something, I said finally, and I need you to be completely honest. Okay, when we were talking, before you told me who you were, was any of that real? Or was it all just part of some plan to ease your guilt? Sarah turned to face me fully. It was real. All of it. At first, yes, I was just trying to make sure you were okay. I told myself I'd message you once, maybe twice, and then I'd know you were surviving and I could move on. But then we actually talked, and you were so honest about your pain, and I found myself wanting to know more, wanting to talk to you again, and again. When did it change? I asked. When did it stop being about Catherine and start being about us? She thought for a moment. Do you remember that night we talked about parallel universes? You said you wondered if there was a version of reality where Catherine was still alive, where you got to grow old together. I remembered. It had been about 3 weeks into our conversations, late at night when I couldn't sleep. I told you I thought about that too, Sarah continued. About other versions of our lives where things went differently. And you said something that stuck with me. You said, but maybe this is the universe where we learn to be grateful for what we had instead of bitter about what we lost. Do you remember that? I nodded. That's when it changed for me. That's when I realized I wasn't just talking to Catherine's husband. I was talking to Daniel, a man who was trying so hard to find meaning in tragedy. A man who made me want to be braver, more honest, more present in my own life. But you still didn't tell me the truth, I pointed out. No, because I was terrified that if you knew who I was, you'd see me as an extension of Catherine, as a living reminder of everything you lost. And I wanted to be my own person with you. I wanted you to know me as Sarah, not as Lauren Montgomery, Catherine's disappointing little sister. You're not disappointing, I said firmly. Catherine never thought so. I was the one who thought that. I was the one who made our relationship about competition instead of love. I picked up the journal again, flipping through the pages. Catherine's handwriting, familiar and precious, filled with observations about her sister that Lauren had never heard. Listen to this, I said, finding a passage. Lauren called today just to chat. No agenda, no drama, just wanted to talk. It was nice, easy, the way it used to be before everything got complicated. I miss that version of us. I miss my sister. Sarah's breath caught. And this one, I continued, flipping to another page. Saw a dress today that would be perfect for Lauren. She probably wouldn't wear it. She's always hiding herself in plain clothes and neutral colors, but she'd look beautiful in it. I should tell her that more often, that she's beautiful, that I see her, that I'm proud of who she is, not disappointed in who she isn't. Stop, Sarah whispered. Please. One more, I said. I think about Lauren a lot lately, about how much time we've wasted being sisters in name only. Life is short. I'm learning that more and more as I get older. What if something happens to one of us before we fix this? What if we run out of time? The room fell silent except for the sound of Sarah's quiet crying. She did run out of time, Sarah said. We both did. Maybe, I said. Or maybe you're being given a second chance. Not with her, but with the people she loved. With me. Sarah looked up at me, hope and fear warring on her face. What are you saying? I'm saying I don't know what this is between us. I don't know if it's real or if it's just two broken people finding comfort in shared grief. But I know that talking to you these past 2 months has made me feel alive again. And I know that sitting here with you now, knowing the truth, doesn't change that. Daniel, I lied to you. For 2 months, I lied about who I was. Yes. And that was wrong. But the feelings were real. The connection was real. And maybe, I paused trying to find the right words. Maybe this is what Catherine wanted. Maybe this is why she was trying so hard to fix things between you two. She wanted the people she loved to love each other. That's a nice thought, Sarah said. But it doesn't change the fact that this is complicated. Beyond complicated. I'm your dead wife's sister. How does that even work? I don't know, I admitted. But I'm tired of running from things just because they're hard. I spent 3 years hiding from life, from connection, from anything that might hurt. And where did it get me? Alone in a house too big for one person, setting out 2 coffee cups every morning for a woman who's never coming back. You still do that? Sarah asked softly. I did. Until today. Today, I think I'm finally ready to accept that she's gone. That the life we planned isn't going to happen. And that maybe, just maybe, there's a different life waiting for me if I'm brave enough to reach for it. What kind of life? I don't know yet, but I'd like to find out. And I'd like you to be part of figuring it out, if you're willing. Sarah looked at me for a long moment, and I could see her weighing it all. The guilt, the fear, the possibility of something new. I need time, she said finally. We both do. We need to step back and figure out who we are separately before we can figure out who we might be together. Okay, I said, and I meant it. How much time? I don't know. Months, maybe. Long enough to grieve properly. To not feel like we're betraying Catherine by caring about each other. We're not betraying her, I said. I really believe that. I want to believe it too, Sarah said. But I need to get there on my own. I need to forgive myself first. I stood up to leave, then paused. Can I ask you something? Why Bookworm in Boston? Why that username? Sarah smiled, just a little. Because of Catherine. She used to call me that when we were kids. Lauren the Bookworm. It was her nickname for me, before everything got complicated between us. Using it felt like honoring the version of us that was uncomplicated. The version where we were just sisters who loved each other. She would like that you're using it, I said. She would like that you're trying to hold onto the good parts. As I drove home that evening, I thought about everything that had happened. The revelations, the anger, the grief layered upon grief. But also the possibility, the strange, unexpected possibility that something beautiful might grow from all this tragedy. I went home and I finally took down the extra coffee cup. I finally put away Catherine's toothbrush. I finally allowed myself to imagine a future that didn't include her. It felt like betrayal and liberation all at once. That night, I read through Catherine's entire journal. Every entry, every observation, every fear and hope and dream she'd never gotten to fulfill. And I cried. Not the quiet, controlled crying I'd been doing for 3 years, but deep body-shaking sobs that came from a place I'd been afraid to access. I cried for my wife, for the child we'd never meet, for the future that had been stolen from us. But I also cried for Sarah, for the years she'd spent punishing herself, for the relationship with her sister she'd never gotten to repair, for the loneliness she'd been carrying, convinced she was unworthy of love. And I cried for myself, for the man I'd been before Catherine died, the one who believed in happy endings and future plans, for the man I'd become, harder, sadder, more cautious, and for the man I might become if I was brave enough to try. 3 weeks passed. I didn't contact Sarah, and she didn't contact me. It was harder than I expected, not talking to her. I'd gotten used to our daily conversations, the way we'd share small moments throughout the day. The silence felt deliberate and necessary, but also painful. I went to therapy for the first time in a year, told Dr. Morrison everything, about Sarah, about the pregnancy I never knew about the conflicting emotions that threatened to drown me. It's okay to feel multiple things at once, Dr. Morrison said. You can grieve Catherine and still develop feelings for someone else. You can be angry at Sarah for lying and still care about her. Human emotions are complex. They don't follow rules. But what if I'm just using her? I asked. What if this is just about finding someone who understands my grief? What if it is? Dr. Morrison countered. What if that's exactly what you both need right now? Sometimes the right person comes into our lives for for complicated reasons. That doesn't make the connection less valid. I also talked to Emily, told her everything over dinner at her house while her kids played in the other room. Jesus, Daniel, she said when I finished. I don't even know what that is. I know, it's a mess. It's more than a mess. It's a psychological minefield. She paused. But I've also never seen you look this alive. Not since before Catherine died. Is that wrong? I asked. To feel alive because of her sister? I don't think it's about right or wrong, Emily said. I think it's about what helps you heal. And if Sarah helps you heal, if she makes you want to live again, then maybe that's exactly what Catherine would want. You think so? I know so. Catherine loved you, Danny. She would want you to be happy. And she loved her sister too, even if their relationship was complicated. Maybe this is her way of taking care of you both. It was a nice thought, maybe too nice. But I wanted to believe it. On the 4th week, I got a text from Sarah. I've been thinking about what you said, about parallel universes. I think maybe we're living in the one where we learn to forgive ourselves. Want to meet for coffee? I stared the message for a long time before responding. Yes, but not at that cafe. Somewhere new. Somewhere that's just ours. We met at a small bookstore cafe in Cambridge, one neither of us had been to before. Sarah was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner with 2 cups of coffee and a nervous smile. I got you a latte, she said. I hope that's okay. I know you usually drink it black, but I thought. It's perfect, I interrupted, sitting down across from her. We looked at each other for a moment, really seeing each other for the first time. Not through screens, or lies, or grief, but as 2 people sitting in a bookstore, trying to figure out what came next. I've been reading Catherine's journal, I said, over and over, and I keep coming back to something she wrote about you. What did she write? She said you had a gift for seeing beauty in broken things, for finding hope in impossible situations. She said that's what she loved most about you, your ability to believe things could get better even when all evidence suggested otherwise. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. I don't feel like that person right now. I feel like I break everything I touch. You didn't break me, I said. If anything, you started putting me back together. By lying to you, by showing me I could connect with someone again, by reminding me what it felt like to look forward to something, by making me want to wake up in the morning. Daniel, I'm not saying this is easy, I interrupted. I'm not saying it's not complicated or messy or potentially a huge mistake, but I'm saying I want to try. I want to see where this goes, and I want to do it honestly, with both of us knowing exactly who the other person is. Sarah reached across the table and took my hand. It was the first time we touched, and I felt electricity run through me. I want that too, she said, but I need you to know something first. I'm not Catherine. I'm never going to be Catherine. I'm different, quieter, more cautious, more damaged. If we do this, you need to want me for me, not because I remind you of her. You don't remind me of her, I said honestly. You look like her, yes, but you're your own person, and it's you I've been falling for. Sarah. Not Lauren, not Catherine's sister. You. We sat in that bookstore for hours, talking about everything and nothing. About our childhoods, and our fears, and our hopes for the future. About what it might look like to try this, whatever this was, for real. We should probably go slow, Sarah said as we were leaving. Like really slow. Take time to figure this out. How slow are we talking? I don't know. Maybe start with dinner? Like actual dates where we see each other in person and have real conversations. I think I can handle that, I said, smiling. We walked out of the bookstore into the cool Boston evening. Sarah's hand found mine, tentative but certain. Hey Daniel, she said as we reached her car. Yeah. Thank you. For not giving up on me. For seeing past the lies to who I really am. Thank you for caring enough to lie in the first place. For trying to protect me even when it hurt you. She leaned up and kissed my cheek, soft and quick. I'll call you tomorrow? You better. I watched her drive away, then stood there for a moment, breathing in the night air. For the first time in 3 years, I felt something other than grief. I felt possibility. The next 6 months were both the hardest and the best of my life. Sarah and I dated, really dated, taking it slow like we promised. Coffee dates turned into dinner dates, turned into long walks through Boston where we talk about everything. We talked about Catherine constantly. Not in a way that felt like she was between us, but in a way that honored who she'd been. Sarah told me stories about their childhood I'd never heard. I told her about the years Catherine and I had together, the private moments and inside jokes. And slowly, carefully, we built something new. Something that was ours. It wasn't always easy. There were moments when Sarah would laugh a certain way, and I'd see Catherine. Times when I'd call her by the wrong name, and we'd both freeze. Nights when the guilt would come crashing down on both of us, and we'd have to remind each other that we weren't betraying anyone by being happy. But there were also moments of pure joy. Sarah reading to me in bed, her voice soft and soothing. Me teaching her to make Catherine's favorite recipe. Both of us crying and laughing as we tried to remember the exact measurements. Walking through the cemetery together to visit Catherine's grave. Holding hands as we told her about our day. Do you think she'd be okay with this? Sarah asked one day as we stood by the headstone. I think she'd be thrilled, I said. She wanted you to find love. She wanted me to be happy. I think she'd see this as her final gift to both of us. On what would have been Catherine's 36th birthday, Sarah and I drove to the coast. We'd talked about this day for weeks, knowing it would be hard, wanting to mark it in a meaningful way. We stood on the beach at sunset, each holding a yellow balloon, the color of the baby shoes Catherine had bought. To Catherine, Sarah said, the sister I never appreciated enough. Thank you for loving me when I couldn't love myself. Thank you for trying to fix what was broken between us. And thank you for bringing Daniel into our lives. To Catherine, I added, the love of my life and the best person I ever knew. Thank you for the years we had. Thank you for teaching me what real love looks like. And thank you for leading me to Sarah, even if it was in the most unexpected way. We released the balloons together and watched them float up into the darkening sky. 2 yellow dots against the sunset, rising higher and higher until we couldn't see them anymore. I love you, Sarah said suddenly, turning to face me. I know we said we'd take it slow, but I need you to know. I love you, Daniel. Not because you love Catherine, not because you make me feel close to her, but because you're you, because you make me want to be brave. I love you too, I said, and I meant it completely. I love you, Sarah, and I think Catherine would too. We kissed on that beach as the sun set behind us, and for the first time in 3 years, I felt complete. Not because the grief was gone, it would never be fully gone, but because I'd learned to carry it differently, to make room for both the sadness and the joy, to honor the past while building a future. A year after our first meeting in that cafe, Sarah moved into the house. Catherine's house. Our house. It felt right, somehow, having her there. She didn't try to erase Catherine's presence. Instead, she honored it. She kept photos up, added her own books to Catherine's shelves, and created a space that belonged to all 3 of us in a way, past, present, and future intertwined. We got married on a quiet Tuesday afternoon in early spring in the backyard of the house. Emily was there, and Sarah's mother, and a handful of close friends. It was simple and small and perfect. Before the ceremony, we visited Catherine's grave together, placed fresh flowers, told her about the wedding. Sarah cried, and so did I, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of gratitude. Thank you, I whispered to the headstone, for giving me Sarah, for knowing what I needed even when I didn't, for loving us both enough to want us to find each other. That night, as Sarah and I lay in bed in the house we now shared, she turned to me with a serious expression. I have something to tell you, she said, and my heart stopped for a moment, wondering if there was another secret I didn't know about. I'm pregnant, she said softly, about 6 weeks along. I found out yesterday, but I wanted to wait until after the wedding to tell you. I didn't want to, she stopped, seeing my face. Are you okay? Is this too much? Too soon? I pulled her close, pressing my face into her hair, and cried. But these were tears of joy, of overwhelming love, of gratitude for second chances. It's perfect, I said. You're perfect. This is perfect. We could name her Catherine, Sarah offered. If it's a girl, to honor her. I thought about it for a moment, then shook my head. No, let's name her Katie. Catherine's childhood nickname. The name you called her when you were young. That way she's part of this, but our daughter gets to be her own person too. Katie, Sarah repeated, tears streaming down her face. I love that. 9 months later, Catherine Katie, Sarah Cooper came into the world at 3:47 a.m., the exact time her Aunt Catherine had died. Sarah and I looked at each other when we noticed the time, and we both knew it wasn't a coincidence. It was Catherine's way of telling us she was there, that she approved, that love doesn't end just because life does. As I held my daughter for the first time, looking at her tiny, perfect face, I thought about everything that had led to this moment. The tragedy, the lies, the grief, the impossible coincidences. The way love finds us even when we're not looking for it. The way healing happens in the most unexpected places. I thought about Catherine, about the child we'd never gotten to raise. And I knew, somehow, that she was part of this too. That Katie carried a piece of her aunt in her DNA, and in her name, and in the love.